let's talk about what a traditional real estate agent may be involved with a team. Like, what does that look like? What are the pros? What are the cons? And some of the things we've noticed over the years. Shannon, I'm going to kick it off with you.
All right.
You're looking at me, so you get the first question. You've been involved with a traditional team before, somewhat, in the early 2000s. But we've evolved from there. Give us kind of a rundown of what you have experienced in a traditional team or what you've noticed in a traditional team and what you like and don't like about it.
So traditionally, real estate team would just be several people coming together, and you typically have a lead person, someone who's in charge of the team, and then people work under them. I think that the really good part about having a team, especially if you are a newer broker, is having people at your side, having people you can lean on, having people you can learn from, and also getting business from that team. I think one of the downfalls is, especially if you have been in the business for a little while, is that now you are paying someone else to be a part of that team. And I think if you have experience and you can stand on your own, that always isn't a good fit for people, because then, you may be at that point off generating your business or doing your business on your own name, on what you can accomplish. And now you are still having to pay others for being a part of a team. So there can be some good things, I think. I think it's really good for newer people. I think if you have been in the business for a while, you're probably better off being on your own or being in a different type of a setting where you are actually contributing and benefiting from that. You can also benefit from a team, especially if you're new. Advertising, it can be very expensive to be in real estate. And we don't always, when we're starting out, have that kind of money or have that kind of exposure, have that kind of name that would draw people in to work with you. So I think that it can be, it can be good for somebody maybe new starting out. I think maybe if you are already a successful broker, you probably don't need a team.
A team per se, yeah. Mm-hmm. And there are those benefits there because they, the lure is, hey, I'm going to send you a bunch of business. You're new to this industry, so jump on my team. You're going to pay me a cut, and then I'm going to feed you some business. But things can go wrong with that, especially if you're not being fed business or you're not given the training. Now, Aspen, you actually built a successful team. I would say you were the instrumental cause of building a pretty good successful team at the last company you worked at. Now, obviously, there were owners there, and they were instrumental in that as well. But I would say that you really took the lead to building that. Share some thoughts on the pros and cons of what you experienced there.
I think, like Shannon said, one of the biggest pros is the owners, especially if the owners aren't licensed in the state that they own the company in, which is pretty common in a lot of places. Then you have someone that's not just the QB to be the first look over. So I know whenever I started at Coldwell, I would do my contracts and I would send it over to the office manager and then send it to the QB. So it's kind of like that middle step where the QB is not having to look over everything, more just like the final paperwork, because they're seeing everyone in the company. So if the team lead can take some of that burden, not the final check mark, just the initial look over, I think that's really appealing to people. Something that's kind of, I would say, the biggest negative of a team, but you are paying, I essentially look at it as like you're paying for the training, but a lot of teams aren't the brokerage. So it's like a team within the brokerage. So you're having to pay a split to your team lead and you pay a split to the brokerage. So that can be a pretty hefty hit, especially if they're taking 25% for a buy side, 50% for a listing. It can really start to be heavy, but real estate is relatively inexpensive to get into compared to other businesses that you can own in regards to what you can make. So I think one of the really, get trained good, do it right from the beginning. I think that's one of the best things that you can do when you're starting.
So with what you've experienced, have you seen realtors that close deals and make less than 50% of the commission that they've brought in?
Yeah, I had met with this girl. I hadn't been licensed very long, maybe 2 or 3 years. And we went to lunch together just to kind of chat. And she'd been licensed a little bit longer than me. And we're all pretty open about I think especially when you first get started, you kind of want to see, well, what's your brokerage doing? So we had sat down for lunch and we were kind of talking about different pay, and she had mentioned what she had got paid that year. And I knew she had sold more than me, and it was less than half of what I made. And I said, no, that can't be right. Like, this doesn't make sense. And she started telling me what she was making from her brokerage and where the splits were going on the team she was, and then what that was to the brokerage. And I think, I don't know if she just didn't realize or hadn't done the math, or I don't know, but I was like, because she was talking about my brokerage, the splits being so high. That was what she kind of kept going on about. And I started doing the math where I was like, if you would have done at the same brokerage I am at, where the splits are high, you would have made it was like 150,000 more.
Wow.
It was it was not a small amount. It was, especially for a 20-something girl, because she had sold a lot, and she was like mind blown.
Holy cow.
She went and had a conversation with her
That's an
team lead.
Expensive mistake.
Yep. And they made some changes.
Yeah. Oh.
Because she loved her team, but I just don't know if she hadn't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I really thought about the numbers outside of the team.
If she was just getting her paycheck and, not.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people get into it and they feel like all of a sudden they feel like they're in the team, and they may like their, the peers that they're working with, and they may like the direction that they're getting, but then they become reliant on it and don't realize that they can step outside and grow something bigger and stand on their own 2 feet and really not have to pay those fees. So like a traditional team serves a purpose for a certain period of time, and then you get to that example and it's like, holy moly, that was an expensive mistake.
I think it makes sense when you're making, 30, 40, 50,000. It kind of makes sense to have someone looking over your stuff. You're not doing deals regularly, so you need help for a little bit longer. If there's any changes to the contracts, it's like throws you through a whole loop. You don't know what addendums you need. You don't know what info sheets you need. So I think at the beginning, it actually makes sense to join a team. I didn't, but I think that I had a really, really good brokerage that answered all of my questions and more, and had a really good training system set up. But if you're joining a brokerage that doesn't have that set up, and I don't consider online webinars to be good training, I think you need a hands-on person in the office to help you. If you have that, then you probably don't need the team. But a lot of brokerages say they offer it, and they do not offer the hands-on training. It takes a lot of time. There's a big turnover rate in real estate agents.
Paul, we started out with kind of a traditional team setup, and then we moved to a co-op, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, I didn't like the original team setup. My wife didn't like it.
Yeah. Let's talk through that a little bit, because that was fun.
Well, the brokerage that we were in was 50% until you paid your desk fee, and then you were footing the bill, and I was paying off of what I made to you, so I wasn't paying in for advertising. That was a rough first couple of years.
Yeah.
But I remember back then being asked by everybody to join their team. I was having a little bit of success. They were saying, don't work with them, come over with us. We've got training. We'll help you do these things. And I was like, I've got Shannon. Yeah. I didn't touch a contract for the first 6 months. I tell everybody this. I was like, the first 6 months was not allowed to enter anything on the paperwork. She did everything. So I got the best training that money could buy. One of the things that I didn't like about all the offers for teams is you're stuck in a certain role, like you're a buyer's agent or you're a seller's agent. And I always ask, so what if your family member has to sell their house? Goes to the seller's agent or the team lead. I can't do that. I can just work with buyers. And as we all know, buyers are harder to work with than sellers. And at that point, we were all selling agents because you could have 20 houses at a time.
Another listing. Dang it.
Yeah. We wanted a buyer. We were all fighting for buyers.
Yeah.
Trying to use the
different market then.
Buyer broker agreement to our advantage. But, I think it was different than a team. But the way we set it up, I wasn't making much money at the beginning.
Yeah. And you were just starting out. So what was funny was because, and I'm going to remind you of this because we started out kind of a traditional team where he would close some deals and he would kind of help reimburse. I would take a certain cut of what his closing were. That's a pretty traditional team. So if you sign up for a team, just know, the team lead typically tries to feed you business. Of course, you're running out and trying to work your own business, but then they take a cut of everything that you make. And like what you said, oftentimes if you have a seller, it may be your mom, it may be you, but then you can't work your own seller lead because that belongs to the team lead. And so there's ins and outs there that you want to think about. But in this situation, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, I just did the math. I remember now what I made. Until I paid my desk fee off, I was at 25%.
Yeah. Yep. So you were paying 50% to the house and 25% to me until you basically paid your dues.
Yep.
And then mine dropped down, I think, a bit. But it was funny because Paul, after like 2 years, the second year into it, you came to me and you're like, I don't like this, man. I feel like I'm really paying a lot. And I was like, oh, okay. So you want to be like a partner? You want to just split the bills 50-50? And he's like, yeah, I think that's better. And then I said, okay, then we won't have, I won't be making money off of you. You'll be partner in the business.